Hi, welcome to the first of the 2025-2026 Great Books Lecture Series. I was going to check to see if this is our 10th or 11th year, but it's been a while, okay? Fortunately, our speaker today is Megan Doyle. Megan has been at JCCC for 9 years, and prior to joining us, she worked in higher education for 28 years, working for Eastern Illinois University, University of Tennessee at Knoxville, Cleveland Chiropractic College, and Park University. She holds a Bachelor's of Arts in Communication Management from Missouri State University, a Master's of Education in College Student Personnel from Eastern Illinois University, and expects to complete her doctorate in education, teaching and learning in higher education from Gwen, Gwynedd Mercy University this December. So it's amazing she's took this on and didn't say, talk to me in January. Her dissertation research is on exploring new faculty orientation in community colleges, a we're just going to stop there and she can tell you the rest. Words I can't pronounce when in front of people. In addition to teaching in the College Success Program, Megan is the lead faculty fellow for the Center of Teaching and Learning, a co-facilitator for the new faculty orientation, chair of Beg, Borrow, and Steal Faculty Roundtable series, from which I have stolen quite a bit, has served on multiple peer review committees, and is a member of the Faculty Sabbatical Committee, the HLC Accreditation Committee, lots of work, and Student Veterans Committee. Outside of the college, she is a conference proposal reviewer for both ITLC Lilly Teaching and Learning Conferences and NISOD International Conference on Teaching and Learning Excellence. She's a women's organization member of PEO International and has served as a youth advisor for the Kaw Prairie Community Church service trip to Chicago last summer. She reported that her primary reason for choosing Demon Copperhead is that while she usually gravitates towards nonfiction, great books, this novel felt deeply familiar to her. She grew up in a smaller rural town, and the setting of the story resonated strongly with her own background. In her free time, she enjoys discovering new coffee shops. Well, you have to stay caffeinated. Reading, kayaking, and most of all, spending time with her family. Megan Doyle.
Okay, thanks for that warm welcome. So this book is very well written, and I was very excited to choose this book. I was talking to Maureen about it in the spring, and as she said, I typically read nonfiction. And so I was going towards some of those titles, and then we were talking about challenge and maybe choosing something that would challenge me. And so that is why I landed on Demon Copperhead. Who has read this book? Okay. All right. Students, this is going to be a great book for you to read, okay? Okay. So this novel won the Pulitzer Prize in 2023. So it's award winning. There are lots of awards that she has received for this book, Pulitzer being very, very, thank you, jeez. So before I dig in though, I want to welcome my mom and aunt on Zoom. Their book club is watching live, so hello everybody. You know, moms have to watch their kids, right? And my mother-in-law was gonna try to log in too. So Betty, if you're there, it's nice to have you. Okay, so let's hop in. Let's talk a little bit about the author. Okay, Barbara Kingsolver is the author. She has written quite a few books. Anybody read other books by Barbara? Okay, good, good, good. Hi, come on in. You're welcome to come on in. So, Barbara grew up in Carlisle, Kentucky, which is a small rural area of Appalachia. And now she currently resides in that same area in Virginia. Anybody been to Appalachia? And you pronounce it Appalachia, not Appalachia, just so you know. If you live in that area, they want you to pronounce it correctly. And she credits growing up in that area for writing and using the setting for this book. She also uses the social issues that are facing that community in this book, which you get to fairly quickly within the first few pages. So she has written the Poison Wood Bible, which tells the story of the wife and daughters of a Baptist missionary on a Christian mission in Africa. And most of her novels are written in first person, which I like. I think that's kind of fun to see the story through the author's and main character. And this book really tackles inequities and injustices. So to prepare, I listened to lots of podcasts and watched interviews with her, and there is a lot out there on her and this book. But she really, something she said in a podcast really struck me. And she was asked, why did you write Demon Copperhead? And she said she describes it as an attempt to build empathy, to let readers step inside another person's life and really feel their struggles from the inside out. I've long wanted to tell a story about Appalachia and the challenges people face here. I just wasn't sure how to approach it. So she's had this idea kind of milling around for a bit. Whoops, wrong way. Which takes us here as part of her story. Anybody know what the Bleak House is? Yes. So the breakthrough for Demon Copperhead and the idea of how to intertwine came. Barbara was doing a book tour in London, and it was November, and she decided she was going to take the weekend off. So she looked up bed and breakfasts, and lo and behold, the Bleak House, this building here, is now a bed and breakfast, which you can stay at. And this was one of the summer homes of Charles Dickens. So she drove up to the Bleak House, and she had the run of the place. Nobody else was staying as guests that weekend, so the owners let her have full run of the place. So she decided to go in and stay in the bedroom that Charles Dickens used to sleep in, and she decided to sit at his desk to be inspired. So she sits at the desk that Charles Dickens wrote part of David Copperfield at, and she said it was just an aha moment. She was sitting at his desk, she was looking out the same window, looking at the same ocean, and she decided, maybe I can tell this story of David Copperfield in a new way. I can take my culture of Appalachia and retell David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. So that was her inspiration. And if you have read David Copperfield, there are a lot of similarities. It's very creatively done. So here are some compare and contrast that I just want you all to see. So Charles Dickens published David Copperfield in 1850. Quite a difference in dates, right? Demon Copperhead was published in 2022. Now, they both deal with poverty. They both deal with children and child issues. Dickens did child labor. At the time, child labor laws were just being written. Social inequality, and of course, in Appalachia, we're going to touch on this, is the opioid epidemic. So one is David, one is Damon. His name is actually Damon Fields. I'll tell you how he gets his nickname Demon in a minute. But they are both born into poverty. They were both orphaned. So dealing with that and the main character. And then, of course, one took place in Victorian England. One takes place in Appalachia. And what I really loved was the creativity of the names. So we've got David and Damon. We had Agnes, and then we have Angus in Copperhead. Mr. Murdstone, and then Stoner is the one in Copperhead. So she's taken the characters' names in David Copperfield and put a new fun twist. So if you are really familiar with David Copperfield, it's a really fun read to compare and contrast. If you haven't read David Copperfield, then hop in and you can compare the both of them as you go. So, who is Demon? So this was AI's attempt at creating Demon Copperhead, or Damon Fields is his name. I put in the description to ChatGPT and asked it to create an image because I was curious as to what it would give me. And has anybody ever tried to do an image creation from AI? It's pretty fun, right? You just keep hitting enter until it gives you something that you like. I can't say that I think this is completely accurate, but it did an okay job. So here is the description I typed in. Damon Fields, known as Demon, born in Southwest Virginia in the late 80s. His mother was a teenage addict, and from the moment of his birth, the odds were stacked against him. His fiery, copper-colored hair earned him the nickname Copperhead, while his sharp wit and rebellious streak soon made him Demon. So this is what they came up with. If you read the book, it goes into a description of, he is described as Melungeon, which is a mixed race that is central to Appalachia. It is a mix of typically 3 different races, European, Native American, and Africa. And it is specific to the area of Appalachia. So this adds another layer to him. Not only is he an individual, but he's tied to a group that has long been part of Appalachia. And so I think that's a really creative way for Kingsolver to continue to add credit to the region. So I would say that Demon is defined by his resilience, his wit and his capacity for both love and self-destruction. He is shaped by a childhood in the foster care system, which they explore a lot. And in the telling of this story, he is in the height of the opioid crisis. So he is put into foster care right when all of opioid addiction was becoming greater. So we meet key people in his life, characters from his childhood, and neighbors. His best friend, Maggot, which is a great nickname, isn't it? I don't know if I'd want the nickname Maggot. But he talks about his dedication to his friends. He is very loyal and really, if his friends didn't have his back, he probably wouldn't have made it as far as he did in this story. So some other characters' names are Fast Forward, Swap Out, and Tommy. You know, you get these great creative names and then Tommy. So he must not have been worthy of a nickname. So a couple of things about Demon that I just want to share with you so you can fall in love with this character is he has deep connection to his community. Appalachia is discussed a lot. He is a great storyteller. The power of storytelling in this book is quite remarkable. And he has a hunger for justice and truth. So he is not just a character. He is Kingsolver's mode of showing resilience of the Appalachian people. So, who has a nickname? Anybody have a nickname? What's your nickname? J-Man. Okay. What's your nickname? Tua. Okay. Tua. Anybody else? Kim? Bunny. Okay. Any other good nicknames? Do you have a nickname for anyone else? J-Man? What's the nickname you call one of your friends? Trying to think. Do you have a nickname? You don't. All right, we'll have to give you one afterwards. So the reason I'm asking you about nicknames is because nicknames can sometimes be a fun thing, and then sometimes they're not, right? When we talk about representation, it's important that the words match. And so who has heard the nickname or heard someone called a redneck or a hillbilly, right? Okay, so if you are calling or you're referring to someone as a hillbilly, how would you describe them? From the South. And what? Country. Okay, who can add to that? What other things? What? Don't wear shoes. Uneducated. Bad teeth. Yeah, you got the Billy Bob teeth that you can get out of the little gumball machine. Anything else? Not smart. They say it again. Bigoted. Resourceful. Yes, living off the land. They live in log cabins in the middle of the woods, we often think, right? Shotguns. Yeah. So Barbara talks a lot about representation, and she wanted to write this story to move away from this type of stereotype. We've got the Beverly Hillbillies, Hillbilly Elegy. What other hillbillies do we know of in mainstream media? Say it again. Dolly Parton? Okay. Yeah, she is. She is from Tennessee. Yeah. Yeah. Duck Dynasty. Yeah. Jeff Foxworthy. Yeah. Yeah. So there are a lot of stereotypes that have come with this. Say to JD Vance. Yeah. Hillbilly. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. 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 So with representation, there is a quote in the book that I wanted to read to you. Hillbilly is a word everybody knows, except they don't. Other people made up hillbilly to use on us for the purpose of being a-holes. But they gave us a superpower on accident. Words have been flung like pieces of S only to get stuck on a truck bumper with up yours pride. Rednecks, moonshiners, ridge runners, hicks. Deplorable. Kingsolver said that she left deplorable at the end because she wanted us, the readers, to feel the sting of being characterized as less than. So, how often do we write off communities with a single word? It happens, right? So Kingsolver said she also avoided words like holler or reckon at the start of the novel because she didn't want the reader to feel like it was a stereotypical Appalachian tale. So she changed and made sure that the language didn't move us into a stereotype from the beginning. So it can be exhausting to be looked down on and dismissed all the time. This is a running theme through the book. Okay, so this book takes place in Lee County, Virginia. Anybody heard of that before? Where have you heard from, Beth? What issues? Oh, maybe. Okay. Oh, yes. Yeah. So Lee County, Virginia is where the setting of this book takes place. Barbara Kingsolver said, I wanted to write this to represent my people accurately, respectfully, and with nuance, because Appalachians do not get good representation in the world and in the nation in mainstream media. So, Lee County, Virginia. Here are some statistics about this county. The median income, $37,000. Poverty rate is 27.6%. The national average is 12.4%, so they are double. 76% have a high school diploma. Only 11% in that community have bachelor's degrees or higher. Of children living in that county, over 30% live in poverty. And in 2015 to 2021, there was a 250% increase in fatal overdoses. They were ranked number 73 in the nation by the CDC as being highly susceptible to HIV and hepatitis C outbreaks. So this gives you an indication of what people in this area may be experiencing, yes? This is a graph that shows the annual overdose mortality rate up until 2021. Pretty staggering, right? The blue is Appalachia. The yellow is non-Appalachian areas. So we have a problem. We have drugs, opioids specifically, have really plagued this area. In the book, Demon's mother struggles with drugs, opioids specifically, and that moves him into the foster care system. So, what do we know about the opioid epidemic? I think it's important to talk about a little bit of the history. Anybody know anything? Kim? Yeah.
That's one of the things that once I got into was really fascinated me about pain is the sixth vital sign. It's one of the phrases in this book that really I went, oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's where it comes from, and it was originally, here, take these, they're non-addictive, and if anybody's been following the lawsuits, they know that they knew it was
Mm-hmm.
addictive.
Yeah.
They knew exactly what they were doing, and a lot of people, it's very, very powerful addiction.
Yes. Yeah, and this, yeah.
Summarize what you said for the video.
Oh, sure. To summarize, she said that there are lawsuits going on and it's very addictive. And the pharmaceutical companies knew what was happening. I did a little research.
Pain is the sixth vital sign.
Pain is the sixth vital sign.
So
Mm.
it's one of the things that drug companies tell. So we watch blood pressure and heart rate and things like that, and they were trying to convince that you had to watch pain.
Yeah.
Too, but pain's
Yeah.
not going to kill you.
Right.
So, but they tried to make it out.
Yes. Yeah. Purdue Pharma specifically targeted this county. They specifically targeted Lee County. And the reason why is because used to be a big mining town, big mining county. And so they knew there were a lot of injured coal miners who had disability. They also knew that medical care was not readily available. So they knew doctors were going to be getting people in and out as fast as possible. And they needed to make sure that patients were willing to access their drug, which was OxyContin. So there's a lot out there about them fully knowing the risks of this, and I encourage you to do some research on it. It will highlight this story if you know the background of that epidemic. So, Demon says this in the book: OxyContin, God's gift for the laid off, deep hole man with his back and neck bones grinding like bags of gravel. For the bent over lady pulling double shifts at Dollar General with her shot knees and grandkids to raise. For every football player with something torn up, the whole world riding on his getting back in the game. This was our deliverance. The tree was shaken, and yes, we did eat of the apple. So Kingsolver, to prepare for this book, actually went to Lee County and shadowed drug addicts. And she had them tell their story. And she said it drove her to tears with every story. All of them, she said, all of them started with an injury. And a doctor prescribed what they thought was going to help them. And The really cool thing that I found out is that Barbara Kingsolver has used the royalties from this book to open a recovery drug residence for women called Higher Ground in Lee County. And it is the first recovery center for women in that county. So she's still giving back and making sure that she's trying to use the story and the royalties to help the people of that county. So, okay, I'm going to bring us up a bit because that drugs, opioid addictions is kind of depressing, right? And while this book is heavy, it has some really great parts. And resilience, I would say, is the strongest theme in the book. Again, this is an AI generated picture. What Demon found is that he had a love of drawing, and he used it as an outlet, which we use our hobbies and our interests as outlets, right? Anybody have an outlet that you do when you're stressed? What do? You draw. Okay, what else do we do? Doll houses, miniatures, okay? Run, read. Yeah, we all have outlets. Maybe you go visit friends, but for Demon, drawing was something that really spoke to him, and it was his way out. He was able to really feel resilient and successful through his drawing. You know, if you think about that area of Lee County, probably their education system was not offering a lot of opportunities. And so in the book, Demon is shadowed by his teacher, and she really speaks into him and encourages his art. And Demon really loves drawing superheroes and comics. That's what he was in, too, just like a teenage boy, right? Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's a good, yeah, good point. She said that a former art instructor said that drawing is acceptable for young men instead of some of the other art forms of superheroes. Yeah. Yeah. So he, I don't want to give too much away, but at the end, drawing is a big reason of him being saved. So, so what do we take away from resilience? What does resilience mean in the college environment? I don't want to pick on my students here at the back, but what does resilience mean? Yeah, balancing things even when it's hard, being resolute, being determined. Good. Anything to add? Yeah, being able to bounce back. That's resilience, right? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So, what coping skills are you using during your down points, right? And in this story, many people are using substances to cope with their poverty and the life that they have. So I teach college success, and in our classes, we talk about growth mindset and we talk about resilience to college students. As a college student, are you supposed to make mistakes? 100%, yes. And are you supposed to move forward? Yes, right? But sometimes we expect perfection. And I think it's interesting when we talk about this story because there weren't a lot of resources, but this community was still very tight and very resourceful, as Kim said earlier. They brought resilience to one another. So, what I want you to do is I'm going to give you a couple of minutes, and I want you to think of your own resilience. So, it's a 3-step process. The first step is I want you to think of an obstacle that you have overcome in your life. Okay? The second step, once you've identified the obstacle, is you are going to talk about what supports there were for you. What resource did you utilize? And then the third step is what growth did you see out of yourself? What was the lesson? So take a couple of minutes and think about that. Okay. Anybody willing to share one of your stops or all three?
So I did not grow up in the severe poverty that Demon did, but I did grow up poor. There were times we couldn't afford to heat the house, and my mom, my brother, and I slept on a pallet in our living room, and our only heat was a wood-burning fireplace. I was the kid with the little card that had kind of snuck their way to the front because I got free lunch. So I grew up that way. But I was always told I could do anything I wanted. I was never held back. And so when I went to college, I paid my own way through college. I did work study. I found out how I could do it and researched all the ways that I could do it. I did not take out any loans until one semester of my senior year. And I took out a $500 loan. Everything else was paid for by me. So my third stop then was the growth that I did. That's the self-efficacy part of the resilience, is I said to myself, I can do this. I did it, and I learned from it. And then I went on and got another degree, and then I went on and got another degree because I could, because I knew I could do it.
Thanks for sharing that. That's resilience at its finest. Anybody else? You had your hand up? Here.
Thank you. So I went to college before this. I'm a returning student, so I have 3 bachelor's degrees. And when I was working on one of my theses for my anthropology degree, I hate writing with all of my heart. I don't know why I thought I could do it, but I could. I thought I could. And so I was working on this thesis and I was just hitting roadblock after roadblock. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm going to switch my major. It was my senior year. There's no way you can do that in your senior year. And I connected with other people who are also working on theses in the same discipline. And we all kind of started meeting together. And then just basic body doubling, just sitting next to somebody and working at the same time as them can really help you along. So that was kind of the main support, is just connecting to other people. And I got it written. It got accepted. Yay. But the growth from that, I realized, is like when you are struggling so much with something, often academic, just connect with other people, because there's no way you're the only one in that same boat. Other people are struggling with it too. If you're struggling, everybody else is too. So just connect with other people. And that was a big moment of growth that I had.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. I really love characters who are gritty and resilient, and they figure it out. And Demon definitely has done that. So as we close, I want you to think about what these stories do for us. So Dickens wrote David Copperfield to shed light on the poverty that was happening in England. And Kingsolver wrote Demon to shed light on the poverty and addiction issues in Appalachia. But both of the stories remind us that books are not just entertainment, right? They are mirrors, and they reflect our society and our struggles and our humanity. So what will we do with the stories we've been given? How will we take lessons of resilience and growth and apply them in our own lives? So just like Demon, your story is still being written, and every choice you make and every time you choose to get back up is part of your story. So thanks for letting me share my thoughts on Demon Copperhead.
We have a little time. Do we have any questions?
Oh, there's a question.
Sorry.
What made you go out of your way to pick this book and read it?
Well, this book originally was recommended to me. One of my best friends is an avid reader, and she said, you have to read this book. She shares her Goodreads list with me, and I normally read nonfiction, so it was certainly, it's 600 pages. It is a big book. Your eyes just got really big. 600 pages. It's a doozy. So it was a commitment, but I was wanting to read something different.
So I have a question. So as you were kind of mentioning with Purdue, like pursuing this region, it's very obvious that government policy directly affected some of the promises people were having with the poverty and the education, all that stuff. How do we know, and there's not a good answer to this, when to stick it out and just be resilient, and when to advocate for change? Like the problems that I'm facing aren't just me needing to work hard, but like me needing to make a change in the system. What's a good metric for hitting that balance?
What do we think? That's an amazing question, and one that if I knew the answer to, I would probably not be standing here. Yeah, it would change the world. And I think truly that's the issue with that area, is that people are born into these desperate conditions. Yeah. I mean, I say it all the time. People say, well, why don't they just pull themselves up by their bootstraps? But my response is, they don't even have bootstraps.
So that actually, the fascinating thing about the phrase bootstrapping is it actually was, bootstrapping doesn't mean what you think it means. Bootstrapping was meant as an impossible task because it is literally impossible to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. So when that phrase came out, it was meant as something that was impossible to do. And then it became
like this challenge to do, and the evolution of that phrasing
Yeah.
is really fascinating.
Interesting.
Which I learned so much in there about these phrases that we use, like redneck, like you had the image up and different things like that. That's one of the things I loved about it, is things I had no clue about.
Yeah.
Like I'm from the Ozarks, and so we have bald knobbers down
Yep.
there, and so the history of that, when you compare like the history of redneck, very, very different.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find a nice way to say this. Vigilantes, for a particular way of life. They were called bald knobbers because in the Ozarks, the top of the hills don't have trees. They're bald, and those are called knobs. So they were those kind of hillbilly kind of people who lived down there, but they were racist vigilantes. I'll call it what it is. They were racist vigilantes.
Any other questions? All right. I forget this every time. No, it's on. This is Michael, my partner in crime, Michael Carriger, is usually here. He is not here today, which is why I forgot to say thank you. Of course, we want to thank Megan. In addition, we also want to thank the Division of English and Journalism, the CoLab, marketing, and Michael, who needs to be here, so I remember to do these things. We're looking forward to our other presentations this semester. October 1st is Professor of Hospitality, Professor Tatum, I think, on Who Moved My Cheese. And then on November 5th is Greg Luthai on the Ross McDonald book. I should write these things down. Also, be on the lookout, October 22nd, Sarah Langdon, who is a best-selling horror speculative fiction author, will be on campus. And she just published one of the stories in the Stand anthology that came out this week. So we've got a lot going on. And Megan, you're a great way to start us out. So thank you very much.